There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good Tuesday, and that's not Tuesday, Thursday so far. I'm already messing up, and we just started. But hello to everybody. Hope you're having a good day today. We're going to be learning how to use watercolor in Photoshop today, and it's going to be really exciting. I'm going to give you a lot of reference tips and a lot of references to like brushes you could use. I'm going to teach you guys how to use like the tools you already have in Photoshop to make watercolor effects. I'm going to teach you guys how to smudge watercolor and all that fun stuff, kind of like you would in a traditional piece. So yes, I'm going to teach you guys how to basically like trick all your friends and family into thinking you are a pro watercolor artist digitally, which is going to be really, really fun. But hello to all my fantastic and beautiful viewers. Hello to Grex, Sneasel, and of course my buddy TJ. Hello, welcome to the stream today. And BJ, Cuban Missile, Harryall, Limonette, Peridot Lady, and Picoza. Welcome to the stream, my friends. But yes, I'm really excited. And Throcket as well, I see you as well. But yes, I'm pretty excited right now. Alright guys, so I'm going to teach you guys just like a lot of the basics and a lot of what you should know about how to translate like how watercolor works traditionally and how to basically trick those effects into a digital piece. So like, it's not going to work exactly the same, obviously, as it would traditionally because you don't actually use, you know, paint and water, you know, physical paint and water, so it's like things will blend a little differently. Things are a lot more controlled. But yes. Alright guys, so first things first, I'm actually going to recommend something to you guys. For anyone that doesn't want to go through like a lot of the painstaking process of customizing brushes and finding watercolor textures and things like that, I recommend actually downloading, there's a specific watercolor set that I use from somebody called Robert Ardill. It's R-O-B-E-R-T, Robert, A-R-D-I-L-L. And this guy made something called a watercolor set for Photoshop. So it's just like, it comes with a ton of brushes. It comes with like a pre-made set of watercolors that he picked from the palette like up here. And it comes with like smudgers and shaders and textures, like paper textures and things like that. But like, that whole set is really handy if you want to actually get started using watercolor in Photoshop without having to mess with a lot of your own brush settings. But yes, Robert Ardill made the watercolor brush set. It is $20 to download, but like, I really recommend it for anyone who's a beginner in watercoloring in Photoshop because he teaches you a lot through his tutorials, and he has like a lot of pre-made things that you don't have to like worry so much about trying to make them yourself. But yes, I'm gonna teach you anyway like how to use the brushes you already have in Photoshop and stuff. Like, I'm gonna just teach you like the basics first, and then I'm gonna show you how Robert Ardill's watercolor set actually helps me when I'm using watercolor in Photoshop. But okay, yes, so a lot of the first thing like that you should know about watercolor in general is that, you know, unlike any other medium, watercolor is more of like a building up process from, it's a transparent medium. So like, unlike things like gouache, which is like a more opaque watercolor, and unlike acrylics and oil paints and any other kind of medium like that, paint, it's transparent, and so like, you know, trying to work that into Photoshop, you could do multiple things to like make your brushes transparent. So I'm going to first show you guys different ways to make your brushes work like a basic transparent brush. So here we go. So first, right now, just using like a regular, like one of the regular brushes that I found from Photoshop. So it's just like, you know, one of these regular old like default brushes. I could just like click on one of them right now, like 32 or whatever. So like if I draw with that thing, oh, that's really bizarre. Alright, hold on a minute. If I draw with that thing, that's a lot better. If I draw with that thing, as you can see, everything's opaque, everything is smooth. It's like, you know, nothing really special. It's just a regular old brush. So it's basically just like using an acrylic or using a pencil or whatever. So like, if I wanted to kind of create a transparent effect, I could do a multitude of things. I can change the opacity of the brush itself. So at the very top, you can see that you have both this pressure for opacity tool, which I talk about a lot in a lot of my pieces when I'm making a lot of my pieces, and the opacity slider here. So, and there's also like these modes here, which I can also show you in a second, but I'm going to start with the opacity tools here. So, I just have this regular brush. All it does is make opaque lines like this. All you want to do is slide the opacity down, let's say like at 50% rate. What that's going to do is make it so that, let's see, let me do it on another layer. I'll do it in a different color. What it does is it makes it so that whatever you draw is actually going to be transparent, like a little see-through. So it's going to be like translucent. Yeah, you know what I mean. Oh, hello, Kairu. How you doing, dude? Hope you're having a good day so far. But yes, so like, as you can see, and I kept the bottom layer down there for reference as well, that it also goes over this opaque layer and you can still see it. You can still see what's underneath when you're drawing. So like, if I had, like, let's say I draw like a friggin' smiley face or whatever, and I drew it with like a regular opaque brush, so like 100% opacity. Because opacity means how transparent it is or how opaque it is, obviously. Yes. Hello, Pizza Wolf! How you doing, dude? If I draw a friggin' smiley face over here, and I go over it, right? I'm like, if I'm still using the brush that I just used to make the smiley face, obviously whatever I color is going to cover the smiley face that I made. But if I want to make like a sort of film or whatever, I can change the opacity of the brush itself, and then when I draw over it, it's going to be transparent. And keep this in mind as well, that with a transparent brush, you can use this as sort of a build process. So like, as you could see here, let me like delete all this stuff. If I put this circle down, and now keep this in mind, the harder that I press, it's still going to stay the same. So that's going to be something I'm going to teach you now. The difference between changing the opacity slider and turning this button on, which is the pressure for opacity tool. The difference between them is, when you're drawing with just the opacity lower than 100%, if you press harder or lighter, it will not make a difference. It will still be the same shade of blue or the same shade of whatever. It's still going to be transparent, obviously, because, like, you know, if I put a layer under here. Come on. I believe in you. Here we go. You can still see underneath that blue that I drew. So, like, I don't have to... It's like, you know, even just, like, lifting... Oh, geez. Hold on a minute. Where did I get that blue? There we go. Alright, so, like, it will keep that same shade, no matter how hard I press, right? However, if I lift my pen off the canvas and I go back over that piece I just drew, that little, like, this little mark I just drew, and I start it again, I will actually make whatever I had just painted darker by going over it, obviously. Because it's like me building the opacity up layer by layer. So, like, this is almost as though, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then let me know, and I can try to explain it a little bit better. But yes. Oh, hey, wait, Cupcake, what's up? How you doing? I showed Fi-Fi my tattoos. Do you want to see? This is actually interesting. Oh, thank you. Yeah, cool. I'd like to see your tattoos. That'd be pretty cool. But yes, so, like, if I have this opacity slider down, I can build up slowly, like, over that mark that I had made, just by going over it again and again and again. However, like, you know, the difference between this and the pressure for opacity tool is this. So let me show you. The smiley's still there. Alright, so here's what it looks like with that 50%. If I turn this on and I start drawing, the harder I press, the darker my mark gets. The lighter I press, the lighter my marks get. So dark, if I press really hard, and also the thicker my lines, which is another thing. Lighter, I press lightly. So that's another thing that you can use while you're trying to do the watercoloring effects. And that's another thing because, like, as you could see, it was still in the same mark. Let's see. It's still in the same mark, but I can actually make it darker like, without lifting my pen, just by pressing darker. Alright. It's still going to be limited to the 50% shade, though, because I still have that opacity up. However, if I turn the opacity all the way up, and I still have the pressure for opacity tool on, the darker I press, the more of that actual color I will get. The lighter I press, obviously, less opacity, more transparent. And it will show anything underneath. So yes. Already, as you can see, like, just turning on pressure for opacity creates a sort of effect like watercolor. That, like, you know, it's almost like the effect of using less or more paint by, like, using the pressure for opacity. So, like, let's say, like, I want to, like, in watercolor, in traditional watercolor, if you know, swipe the paint up and you're using the water and then, you know, you're starting to watercolor on your paper, typically, the longer you have that brush down on the paper, the lighter the pigment will get as you, as the pigment, like, comes out of the brush onto the paper, because the paper's absorbing the water and taking the pigment and things like that. So, like, you know, the longer you have that brush down, the drier it will get, and the less color will be in the brush to make a darker shade. So, like, I could mimic that with pressure for opacity by saying, like, you know, the darker I press, and let's say, like, you know, oh, I'm losing pigment from the brush, so it gets lighter. Right? So yeah, this already creates a sort of watercolory effect in itself, just with this one stroke, by having pressure for opacity on. Yeah. Pressure for opacity is so crazy useful. I know, right? It helps me with everything. In fact, Grex, for your commission, I've been using pressure for opacity to create, like, textures. Because, like, you know, it creates this, like, natural texture whenever I press harder or lighter. It just creates, like, this odd, like, effect, which I can, you know, therefore smudge or whatever I want afterwards. But yes. Alright. So that is the difference between using the opacity tool and the pressure for opacity tool. If I go to, like, you know, I can go as light as I want. So, like, if you want, let's say, like, you don't want it to get as dark as, like, this, so you decide to keep it on, like, 30%, and that's, like, this is how dark it will get. No matter how hard I press, this is how light my mark will get. However, if I just use pressure for opacity, I will get a full range of color in one stroke, as long as I press lighter or darker, or press harder and lighter. You know what I mean? I always worry that the tablet will get damaged by pressing harder on it. Yeah, no, oh my god, same. I'm always worried that I'm going to scratch my tablet, because I've already accidentally scratched it before, but it wasn't even from me pressing hard on it. It's because I wasn't replacing my nib enough, which is a big pro tip to any professional illustrators and artists out there using tablets. Always replace your nib when it gets, like, you know, about, like, this much of it. Just, like, because you can actually scratch your tablet if you don't replace it, so. But yes, White Cupcake, I will take a look at your tattoo after I'm done with my tutorial session. Alright, cool. So with that said and done, like I said before, watercolor in itself, traditionally, is like painting by building up. So, like, if I were to make a sphere, right? And I wanted to do it with the opacity. I want to make a shaded sphere. So let's say I'll do a little sketch for you. As soon as it lets me draw. There we go. I'll just do this in 100% first. So here's the sketch. I'm going to show you guys. This is what I want to do. There's a sphere, and the light source is coming from this direction. So this is the light source. And here's like a shadow, right? And I want it to be like dark here and then light here or whatever. So, like, if I wanted to do something like this in a watercolor-based piece, if I'm like, you know, okay, I want to try to do this just using the opacity tool. The opacity slider. Like, I'm not going to touch pressure for opacity, but I'm going to show you guys the difference between a piece made with just opacity and a piece made with the transparency lock. Or the pressure for opacity. Those are two different things. Here we go. So like, I'm gonna make a blue sphere, because I've been using blue this whole time and it looks pretty nice. So I'm gonna start with that 50%. It doesn't have to be a perfect sphere. And I'm gonna do it in monochrome, so it's just gonna be one color. Let's see. What I could do is, if I don't want it to be as dark as this when I get started, right? I could lower the opacity after the fact that I had made this with 50% opacity. I could even change this in the middle of working on stuff. Change this to 20%, right? That way when I press down, it's not gonna be as freaking dark as before. And I can build on that slowly. And it's still at 20%. I can build on that again. And I can build on that again. So isn't that really cool? So like there's that, and obviously, when I'm looking at this, it does not look blended. It doesn't look quite like watercolor would work, because in watercolor, when I'm using, because like I use watercolor a lot, it's one of my favorite mediums, and ink. Because water-based mediums, I like building up rather than building down. Or rather than like pasting whites on and stuff. Like I like to use the white of the paper. That's one thing I should probably mention. Watercolor uses the white of the paper rather than a painted white when trying to get highlights and trying to get lights in the piece. Because watercolor is a transparent medium, you are supposed to utilize the translucence of the pigment itself by showing the whites, like using the white of the paper to make colors lighter and things like that. So yes. So in a sense, just by using the opacity tool in Photoshop, I'm using the white of the paper to create my lights. Like just because it's showing through and it like creates the illusion of light. You know what I mean? Hope that makes sense. It looks like Polywag. It looks like Polywag. I can make it into Polywag if you want. Tablets are gonna take some scratches here and there if you have it long enough, but it is important to check your nibs. If they're getting too jagged or chipped, it'll leave some serious marks on your tablet face. Yes, exactly. Thank you, TJ, for saying that. Yes, exactly. Be sure to check your nibs. I have made that mistake way too many times. Alright. So here we go. Maybe I want to make like a shadow here. So I think I'll add a shadow in by making this 80%. And here's the part where I have to be careful. Is that like, because this is all transparent, whatever mark I make underneath it will show through. And I'm like, you know, I don't want this to be any darker than before. So like what I could do is put this on a separate layer, which is what the fun part of using Photoshop for watercolor comes in, where that comes in, is that like, you know, if I were to make that shadow here or whatever, all I really have to do, like just to trick it, is just like, you know, erase that little part there. If I wanted to. Keep in mind that as you merge your layers, let's say, if I were to merge these two things, ooh, not flatten. Oh! I didn't mean to flatten that. Merge! Boom! Yeah, merging these two will just make these into one shape. But yes, I don't really want that right now. Because if I want, I can just like leave it separate. It'll just make things easier in the long run to blend and things like that. Right, let's see. Where the heck am I? Well, I can't see that. There it is. Oh, there we go. That's another thing I should probably teach you guys right now. If you have your caps lock on, if you're using Photoshop, you will not be able to see the outline of your brush, like how big your brush is. So like you'll just see this little pointer here. If you turn caps lock off, the circle will come back. So sometimes if you're using Photoshop and you accidentally press the caps lock button, and suddenly you don't see your cursor anymore, you don't see like the big round cursor anymore, and you're just like, oh crap, I want to see the shape of my brush, then just make sure that you have caps lock off. That's all. I have gone through pieces before, like trying to get through whole pieces before where like I didn't know what the heck was going on with my program because I couldn't see the shape of my brush anymore, like for every piece that I was making that day, and I was like, this is so inconvenient, like did my Photoshop break? And I just realized I had the caps lock on the whole time. Alright, here we go. So, as you can see, like, you know, this isn't blended like watercolor would necessarily act, because as you're adding pigment to pigment in watercolor traditionally, they will sort of blend together, or they might create like, you know, watery marks, and it's just like, it's a lot easier to blend with water. So what we're gonna do is we're going to mimic how we would blend this traditionally. So like what we're gonna do, it's like something that I should probably like, what I would equate this to is that this is like me painting over dry watercolor over and over again. If the watercolor were wet, like if this were an actual traditional piece, the shades that I add to it, like, you know, the darker stages that I add to it will probably blend in pretty naturally, and like I wouldn't really need to do a lot of smudging because it's already kind of naturally done. But because like in Photoshop you don't have really the option to have like a wet watercolor, like there's no such thing as like a timed brushes where like it slowly dries over time, you know. I'm saying dries because, you know, obviously you're not actually using real water or whatever, but like there is no such thing as really like wet brushes in Photoshop unless like you were to make it somehow. But we're going to mimic what it would be like if this were blended while the watercolor was wet, because it looks the way that it would have if I had painted them in layers after every layer dried. So here we go. If I have my smudge tool, I'm going to show you guys what I have on for my smudge tool. So this button here, this little it looks like a cup with a bunch of brushes in it. This is going to tell you about the brushes you are currently using, or about any of the brushes that you want to use. So like, right now I'm in the smudge tool, and this is my current smudge brush. So it tells me the spacing, the spatter, the hardness, the size, etc. And like what other effects I have going on the left. So like, I have transfer on, I have brush pose on, noise on, things like this. So like, I'm going to show you guys what each of these things do. So like, when you're creating brushes, which is actually pretty essential when you're trying to like mimic mediums from real life, like you want to go into your brush presets and mess around with like all these different effects to see if you can get it to look the way that you want it to, whether it be like have your brush have jagged edges, have your brush do these random spatters once in a while, you know, maybe have like a bunch of different shapes that like turn into one big brush, like things like that. You could do all that stuff by either like scanning a texture, or scanning like something that you had drew and making that into a brush, or just messing around with the presets here, which is like something that you can do anything with any of the presets in Photoshop. But yeah, so like, to make, this is a smudge tool that I actually made, because all of the smudge tools in Photoshop I felt like were way too smooth. Like it looked more like a blur tool to me than it looked like a smudge tool. And I wanted to have, like, retain some texture when I smudge, which I don't use the smudge tool very often unless I really want to smooth things out. But like, it is very useful to go into like the smudge tool here and mess with the presets of it, just to see if you can get it, like, if you don't want it as smooth of a smudge, to like, you know, mess with the scatter, which let me show you what this does. So by having this at 0%, it looks like just a regular, like a line of a bunch of circles, because this is the way that like I have my brush right now. Because the spacing of the brush itself, it's like, I don't know how to explain spacing. Spacing is just like the space, literally the space between like each moment of that brush. So like, you know, as I move, as I glide it down, if I have the spacing at 0%, it will look like that regular brush that I was just using, like a regular pen. There won't be like any weird effects of it spacing out in any way. But since I have spacing on, and I turned it up a little bit, it will have like these moments where like it separates a little bit from itself every time I move it. So like if I were to draw with this tool rather than smudge, it will look like this. It'll look like something like this. But yes, by using the scatter tool, I can move all that spacing in different directions, which helps me to create a sort of texture of smudging that I like. Count is like how many of those little parts of the brush I want to be showing with every stroke. I have it about 1 right now. Counter doesn't really do much, I guess. Alright, let's see. Alright, so transfer is basically like the opacity of certain parts of this brush. So like, if I were to turn the strength jitter up, what it is basically saying is that it will jitter the opacity. Because transfer, I kind of see it as like another way of saying like how the brush transfers onto the paper, so how it will be, how like opaque it will be again. So like, the higher I have it, the more differentiated every section of this brush will be when I'm drawing it. So like, right now I have like these light parts at the top and these really, really translucent parts at the bottom. If I turn this down, they all kind of become more uniform. And then brush pose is basically saying like, you know, what happens when you're tilting your actual brush, and like when you're drawing, like, will it be tilted? You know, things like that. So you guys kind of get what I mean. Like, just mess with these guys when you're using your brushes. Just mess with them to try and get them the way that you want them to look. Alright, let's see. So this is the smudge that I'm going to use. And actually, even with that, I could mess with the strength of, like, how much I want this to smudge in the first place. So if I decide, like, you know, I want this to smudge as soon as I press down, I can put it at 100%, and it will smudge almost immediately. If I don't really want to, like, smudge that fast, I can turn the strength down to, let's say, like 30%. And it'll take longer for me to smudge that down. So like, let's say like I wanted a little bit of hardness of the brush showing, and I didn't want to like press really lightly to do that, I could just turn the strength down. I kind of like it at around like 70-80%. So already, it sort of creates like almost a watercolory type of deal. Obviously, it's really smoothed out. This could be like any medium if I wanted it to, but it's still transparent, so that's gonna add on to like it looking like watercolor. And what's cool about using it in Photoshop is that I could smooth out whatever parts of this I want by like using the eraser tool. I could even go back over it. I can undo things I didn't like, which is like obviously the positive aspect of using a digital medium rather than a traditional medium, is that you can A, fix mistakes a lot faster and a lot easier. B, do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do with that medium in real life. And what I'm going to show you right now is that, like, remember how I said that watercolor is a transparent medium? Well, if I decided like, I wish that this was lighter, I can actually go back into this, right? If I still wanted to use the white of the paper to create the white, to create the highlights, I can just go back into this, use the eraser tool that I have, and if I don't want the erasing to be like that dramatic, if I don't want it to be like, you know, literally this opaque line, I can also turn the opacity of the brush down. It's like 20%, and then when I erase, it doesn't erase 100% of the pigment. So it's almost like, imagine if you're watercolor painting and you have the pigment down and it dried, right? And you're like, ah, crap, it's kind of too dark. I wish that I could make it lighter. what people do in watercolor traditionally to make things lighter is they'll like add a little bit of water to it, take a paper towel, and dab it, or use the brush, either like the actual brush they have, put a little bit of water down, and pick it up with like a swipe of the brush. And things like that. Like you could use like a tissue, you could use whatever, as long as, you know, you're not like rubbing too hard on the paper, which is another thing. Don't rub your watercolor paper too hard because you will end up pilling the paper, which is like creates these little like parts of the fabric of the paper, and then it won't be able to hold as much water and you won't be able to erase as many mistakes. But not that you can necessarily like erase watercolor in the first place, but that like erasing watercolor is basically just picking up the pigment that you already put down. Because watercolor is a lot less permanent than other mediums just because you are able to make it flow again by adding water to it again. But yes, hello Crystal, how are you doing? I'm so excited. I just got your emotes done and I just sent them to you, so I hope you got them. See you later, BJ. I love you so much. Thanks for coming by. And yeah, whew. I'm like so into this tutorial right now. I'm barely saying anything in the chat, but I love you guys so much. All right. So like I'm gonna go into this, and I'm gonna pretend that this is like my paper towel, right? And I just put water onto my canvas or whatever. I didn't really do anything, but you know what I mean. This is at 21% opacity right now, my eraser. So it'll almost build like it would that brush before if I go back over it again after lifting my pen. So there we go. And what I could do, add in there again. So that's pretty cool, right? So yeah, you could basically do anything you want with that opacity tool. Let me get that blue back in there. It's like maybe I want to add a little bit of that pigment again. This is at opacity 83. I want this to be at like 20. Again. Add that shade back in there. But yeah, basically it's about just like building up on your own marks. So let's say, like, I kind of, like, you know, this is looking pretty great, but, like, it still doesn't seem enough like watercolor to me. I could mess with my own brush itself. So I can go into the presets for this brush that I have here, which, you know, again, is the cup with the brushes in it on the side here. Oh, I'm so excited because Rye's the best. Oh, you're the best. Thank you so much. Cuban, how you doing, dude? Did I say hi to you yet? I love you, man. I'm gonna get some water really quick because I've been talking nonstop. Whew! I need to copy your smudge brush settings. I'm never happy with the default one. Alright, actually... Oh, geez! Crystal! Thank you so much for the host. And you know what? While I'm on that topic, thank you Silver for the host, thank you Grex for the host, and thank you Jonesy Boy for the hosts. You guys are so supportive. And I just really appreciate that you guys help me spread the love and spread the creativity. God bless. I'll go back into the smudge tool for you really quick. And I'll just show you, I'll like take some screenshots for you really quick for you. Really quick for you. Just so that you have a good idea of these settings. I don't know if I already took a picture of this one. Oh well, it's happening. Here we go. Oh geez. Okay, so these two are not like ones that I can go into, but I have noise on and I have smoothing on. So yeah, this is my brush preset for this guy. And I'm using the airbrush. So I'm using like a 45 size, which you could change anyway. Doesn't really matter what the size is when you start, but it's like this. I'm using like an airbrush tool. So you have the airbrush tools in Photoshop already pre-made. Just choose an an airbrush tool and put these presets to it, and you should be fine. Alright! So I'm going to try and change the preset of this brushy brush that I have here to see if I can make it mimic more of a watercolor brush effect. So like, what I can do is, I have to consider like, you know, what does a watercolor brush actually do when I'm painting? And the biggest thing that I can think of is, it's not always as smooth as this kind of line is. I want the edges to be just a little bit more jagged. So what I'm gonna do, let's see. I need to figure that out first of all. I think I go into scattering. Yeah. So the scatter, again, the more I blow this up, the more the brush will scatter, so the more the marks that I make, like as I make one line, it will create like bubbles or like whatever, like multiple, it'll create like multiple instances of that mark. And so yeah, it's at 1000%, it's looking nuts. So if I go back down to 0%, this is how smooth I can make this look. If I want to just go up a little bit and create just a little bit of this sort of texture here, I can. If I decide that I don't want it to be quite like this, I could change it to like 2 count. And obviously the more count, the more smooth it gets, but I don't want it to be too smooth. I'll do like 1. Jitter doesn't really do anything for me here. If I add texture, I just want to see what I can do with this. Nah. Nah, I don't think texture really is needed. Dual brush. Okay, so dual brush, I think you can add a second brush to your brush, and it, like, brushes with 2 brushes. So, have a brush with your brush so you can brush while you brush. Here we go. No. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't need it. Ah, that's interesting. So transfer makes the edges of this look transparent, but I'm not sure if that's really going to be useful for me. In this instance right now, I'm just going to see what happens. Fix that up a little bit. Nah. Maybe I'll do like a tiny bit to add a little bit of texture, 3%. Make this a little bit less, because I don't want the pen pressure to affect it too much. 50% flow jitter. Edges like this. Alright. Can I make this into a new brush? Yeah. Let's say I make this watercolor brush. So like, you know, you can save the brushes that you make by going down to this bottom right, and this little dog-eared paper, it says create new brush. So then you can just name it, press OK. And now I have a new brush. So if I go back to the 19 one, I think yeah, it should be back to the normal one. So like, okay, I have this new brush that I just made. So like, you know, if you don't want to mess with the other brush that you had just messed with, you just make a new brush, and then it should retain all that stuff that you have saved on the other brush. And I think you guys know what I mean, but I'm talking like a freaking crazy person. But yes. Alright, let's see. This by far beats watching any kind of tutorials on YouTube where they just speed run through the process. Why, thank you! I appreciate that. I'm glad that I can at least help you guys out a little bit more live. We're doing it live! Just because, like, I think it's a lot more useful to actually have, like, a teacher, you know, because then I can actually respond to your questions. You guys can, you know, as I'm going along, you guys can, like, go with me and, like, see what I'm doing and, like, how I fix my brushes, and, like, rather than it all just going whizzing past you. So, thank you very much. Okay. So with this new brush, I'm actually going to, wait, hold on a minute. Before I do that, I should probably smudge that freaking shadow over here. Ah! Oh, too much smudge. Too much of the smudge. There we go. Good enough for me. I don't know. Alright, here we go. I want to make that same freaking, blue sphere. Let me just see what the heck this looks like when I'm drawing with it. Obviously, if I decide I don't like the way that it looks, I can fix that. So I feel like this is a little bit too rough when I'm drawing with it. So I'll just go back into the preset. I can go into scattering. Turn that down to 10%. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's a little bit better. There we go. Okay, I kind of like that. I think I'm going to leave it that way. So if I start making this blue ball, I'll put this on to 42% or something like that. The meaning of life, as you should know. Here we go. Just gonna do the same process as before. I turn the opacity down after that first stroke. So again, you gotta think of, when you're doing watercolor in Photoshop, the biggest difference that you'll find is that it doesn't blend itself automatically like you would traditionally just using water, just like, you know, kind of like brushing up against that, the marks and like, you know, it's not gonna blend the same way. So you have to do that manually. You have to do that part manually. But it's okay, because it's still gonna look like watercolor. It's just gonna have that little extra step to use. And it's gonna have pros and cons. Like, the pros of using watercolor in Photoshop is that you can erase things, like full on erase it. Like, it's not gonna leave a stain ever if you don't want a stain there. You can undo marks. You can create cleaner edges. You can add opaqueness over things without it like drying transparent, like things like that. You can do whatever you want in Photoshop. Whereas it's not gonna look like exactly like watercolor all the time. It's gonna be hard to make it look like watercolor because you do have to add those extra steps by like smudging things yourself that would have been smudged naturally with the water traditionally and things like that. So there will be pros and cons. But like, you know, if you don't want to spend $1 million on tubes of paint all the time and you have Photoshop already, then you might as well try and see how you like it or not. Alright. Let me add that shadow underneath. It's not dark enough. There we go. I like don't want to have to erase it. Oh. Well, I'm gonna have to anyway, I suppose. It's sloppy as hell, but it's gonna have to work. Ah! This is still at 21%. Erase! Alright. Alright, it's good enough. It's fine. We're good. We're doing this. We're doing this thingy. Alright, it's good enough. It's fine. Okay, here we go. Smudge that baby with that same smudge tool. Maybe I'll do it like a little bit lighter this time. If I turn the strength down, if I undo what I just did, if I want to, like, you know, smudge it a little bit less to kind of have some of that, retain some of that, like, those marks, that texture there, that could also add a little bit more of that, like, oh, I painted over the dry or whatever. Oh, geez. That is pretty dang dark. One minute. It's dang dark! Alright. Yeah, so like if I zoom into that, it already kind of looks like, you know, textured like watercolor. Basically, it's like tricking your brushes, it's tricking your paper, it's just a bunch of tricks to make it look like it was made of watercolor. The biggest like thing that I am trying to emphasize is that since watercolor is transparent, the best way that you're gonna work that into a digital piece is by working transparent. Like I didn't just choose like a light blue color and just put it in there. I used opacity for that. So like, you could, if you wanted to, just use like, let's say, moving on from like this process of like, you know, the shapes of my brushes and all that. If I move down, oh geez, yeah, I can reset the view here. There we go. Okay, let's say like I have my brush opacity at 100%. And I put this down. And then I have another layer, and I put down like red. And the only reason why this is showing through is because my brush has some transparency in it already. So let me actually use a different brush so that I could show you for real like what I'm trying to tell you. There we go. Here's the red. And here's the blue. So obviously, moving this over this, you can't see underneath it. If I turn this layer into a multiply layer, that actually makes this sort of transparent on its own. It will show all the dark marks underneath it. If I make this also into a multiply layer, it'll do the same thing, but it'll like work this way. Let's see. So let's say like I wanted to work like a watercolorist in terms of without using like the opacity tools, but like still trying to make new colors, like blend colors like I would with watercolor. Let's say like I make like these pink hills or whatever. They're so cute and pink, and I just color them the heck in there. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. If I wanted to, like, you know, erase parts of it, smudge it or whatever. I do whatever the heck I want, man. I'm like, ooh, look at this highlighted hill that I just made. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It makes 0 sense, but it's there. Alright. So I got some pink, and I'm like, you know what? Kind of actually want this to be a little bit bluer. What I could do is like add this shade here. I'm like, it's alright, but if I put the multiply layer on, then it mixes with the color underneath it to create this purple. When it's normal, I got freaking blue. Purpley blue, but it's still blue. And then if it go to multiply, boom, it's purple! It's like the reddest purple you've ever seen. I freaking hate that purple, oh my god. Did I ever mention that I hate red purples? I like blue purples. But yes, there you go. So this is pretty cool, right? I can just like mess with it that way. If I smudge that, if I smudge the edges of that multiply layer, it almost acts like it's just part of the first layer up there. But this is like how you can like tint things. So yeah, that was just for reference, like to let you guys know that you could also use the multiply layer options here to make like a transparent effect on things. Because like obviously with watercolor, if you put like, you know, a shade of red down, if you like make a red circle or whatever, and then you let that dry, and you go over that with a lightish blue, then it's going to make it, when it dries, look purple, because obviously you're mixing colors. So this multiply layer option kind of like mimics that, as though like you're actually painting it like over that pink, and like it's blending together. So yeah, that's sort of like another way of doing it like without the opacity tool, which you could probably do the same exact thing with just the opacity of your brush. So like if I like turn this off and I went into this layer, or I went over in a new layer with that same reddish blue, if I turn this opacity down to like 30% or whatever, it still kind of creates that effect of like the purple, It's just not as intense, I suppose. Because I still have to go over it over and over again. But yeah, it's still going to create, like, because here it is, like, by itself. But yeah, I think the best way to get that effect is with the multiply. Yes! So there you go! So that's like another thing that you could utilize if you want to use watercolor in Photoshop. So I just showed you guys how to do these spheres up here, just with the opacity, changing the opacity. I'm going to show you guys how I usually work with opacity, just using the pressure for opacity tool. So when I turn this baby on, which is like my favorite friggin' tool, here we go. I'm gonna erase this weird ass hill. Oh! I just swore! Okay, ban me. Oh god, I'm terrible. Trying to keep it PG, and here I go swearing in the middle of nowhere. Alright, here we go. Let me get rid of that crap. So here are my spheres. One with the really smooth brush that I used, and one with just that weird watercolor brush, quote-unquote, that I made. Which I can actually probably erase parts of this really quick, just to make that highlight in there. Do-do-do-do-do. Alright, cool. Alright, so like if I were to make a sphere just using the pressure for opacity tool, and I use that same blue that I did before, these guys. This is me painting really lightly, right? However, I'm not gonna get it exactly perfect because, you know, I will always have like a slightly different press as I'm moving around on the tablet. So it's going to have some of these little marks here. But I could like it, I may or may not like it later on when I'm actually smudging, because it may create some textures that are interesting. So like, you know, I'm going to leave it the way that it is right now. If I can just go over it again without having to change anything up there. Just because I have pressure for opacity, it's going to retain it this way. Here we go. Just the darker I press, the darker the marks will be. And then again, if I go over that, it's going to make it darker as well. So let me smudge that. Just a little bit. This is weird, huh? Doesn't it look so weird? Don't worry, we'll fix it. Again, it's just controlling your medium. And this goes for both traditional and digital. And I'm controlling my medium by making new brushes, by fixing the strengths of things, and by fixing the opacity of things, etc. It's just like, you know, pressure for opacity is a little bit harder to control just because, like, you have to have good, like, a good sense of how hard you want to press your pen to make dark lines and things like that. But it's still doable. It's still fun. Woo! Alright. Let's say, like, I don't really want this to be as, I can, like, smooth that out with just the eraser tool. See? This is the positive aspect of using digital. So I can smooth this part out. And it looks gorgeous! Nice! So it looks like pretty similar, but I like that there's still some of these textures in here that I didn't get in these two. Where, like, it's a little bit more randomized in texture just because, like, you know, pressure for opacity is harder to control for me. So, like, you know, in some parts where I wanted to be lighter, it ended up being a little bit darker, but it did create a sort of interesting change for me. Yes. Hello, Slowthano! Welcome to the freaking, I almost said welcome to the game, but welcome to the tutorial, my friend! It looked like a lumpy butt. You look like a lumpy butt. Are you insulting my art skills, Bits of Wolf? Just kidding. You're a beautiful, rotund buttocks. Alright, here we go. Back to business. Here we go. I'm gonna put one more shade down. Ah! Okay, I want that to be a little bit... I'm gonna press harder for that. Ugh. And also pressing harder will make my brush bigger, so that's another kind of like downfall for me. So like if I wanted to make this like darker blue, I could just go into here, make it darker, and then the lighter I press, the darker, it's still gonna be darker than the other pigment anyways. But yeah, man. This is pretty sloppy, but I just wanted to give you guys like a good idea. Oh man. Ah! But yeah, this is the sort of thing that you can do. Alright, so I'm gonna also take it a step further and show you how to make it look really like it's made with watercolor. Are you ready? I think you are. Here we go. Let's say, like, you know, this is okay. It looks watercolory in a sense that it's, like, transparent. It looks kind of watery. You know, some of the edges are kind of bleeding and things like that. But I could push it by acting like I actually did this on watercolor paper rather than the Photoshop canvas, which is just a very smooth white background. So like, one of the things that makes people's work look like watercolor in the first place is the texture of the watercolor paper underneath. What I could do to make this look more like a watercolor piece just with the texture is I can go online, find a free vector, a free use vector of like watercolor paper. I could scan my own watercolor paper and put it in. I can make my own texture if I wanted to, but like, why would you do that if you could just scan the paper? I mean, you know. So like, all you gotta do is go, you know, Google, just be like watercolor paper texture. And you go in here in images or whatever, and you know, you see all these beautiful like different textures that people have scanned or taken photos of. I would not recommend getting something like this and pasting it into your canvas just because it has like a shadow. I would recommend getting something more like this, where it's just like flat, you know, uniform, something like this. But like, obviously, depending on how big you want your watercolor piece to look, you might have to scan a very high resolution version of your own paper. So like, let's say like, you know, I'm making a pretty large scale piece in Photoshop. I'd want to scan the paper at either 300 or higher so that I can shrink it down or enlarge it to any size that I really want. Because I'm gonna assume that like no one's gonna work at like, I don't know, like 100 inches wide and whatever, because like that'd be like freaking nuts. But like, yeah, just like if you want to have a really high resolution texture in the background, you just scan at a higher resolution when you're scanning. If you're making a big piece, scan at a higher resolution. So here we go. So like, if I copy this just really quick and put that guy in there, whoa, check this out, man. So again, like this is part of the reason why I wanted to work transparent in the first place. Like I said before, like I was saying before, like you could technically use opaque tools and like, you know, you could use opaque tools and make it look like you used watercolor, but the only thing that you'd really have to do to fix it if it doesn't look transparent enough is just go into that layer and actually turn the opacity of the layer down. So like, let's say like, you know, boom, this already looks more like watercolor than it did before, right? Like, doesn't that look like I had just painted it on there? Let's say the texture's a little bit too intense though. I could turn this opacity of the actual paper down if I wanted to. So I'll turn it to like, you know, 78%. If I go to, like, I really like this one. I think that this looks the most successful in terms of looking like watercolor. If I go to that shadow, I think that the shadow is a little bit too opaque. I could just turn the opacity down a little bit to show the texture of the paper a little bit more. And another thing I could do if I wanted to retain the darkness of that shadow, I could take what I had just copy pasted, that paper, and I can go above all these guys, paste it in there. And I can turn this into a multiply layer so that it kind of adds more of that texture in there. It's like, you know, I could turn this off, the background one, if I wanted to, and just have it above and turn it into a multiply layer. And yeah, it kind of adds a little bit more of that in there. But there you go. So, like, you know, this kind of adds that finishing touch for me. And if you want to even, like, go a step further, you could start with adding that watercolor paper down, which is something that I recommend. But I just wanted to show you before all that how to work with brushes, how to work with blending, and all that stuff, just to, like, create the illusion of using watercolor and how it actually works traditionally, and translate that into digital. But yes, the texturing adds so much, and I'm telling you, texture is your best friend when you're using Photoshop and you want to make something look really fancy. Which is something that I showed Grexy Grex when I was doing his commission earlier, which I can show you right now. If I open... Grex, you're going to see your commission in process. I hope you're excited. If I open the Grex Forest, which is what I named it. Here we are, right? So, like, this is how it looks right now. I'm adding foliage. I haven't really done much with the foliage yet, so that's why it looks like just a block of color. The mushrooms are just kind of blocks. The rocks are just kind of blocks. I'm going to be adding some value to them later. But what I did to make these patches of grass look like grass or have some texture to them and kind of separate them from the trees is I added a brush texture that I had scanned myself. So, like, I inked a full piece of paper, right? And all I did was just use ink splatters, kind of like, you know, put a wash down, and just let it do its own natural thing where, like, certain parts of the watercolor or certain parts of the ink would pill, certain parts of it would pool in certain places, and, like, make this, it made just like a really pretty looking sort of gradient around the whole thing. But yeah, it was just like an inked piece of paper. It wasn't anything special. I scanned that piece of paper and I use it now to add texture to my pieces. So before I added the texture to the patches of grass, those patches of grass just looked like this. Like I had just worked them into Photoshop. I just used a regular brush and the pressure for opacity tool. And it just looked like this. But by adding that texture in there, I put the texture onto a multiply layer so that it kind of showed all that was underneath it. It creates this sort of gorgeous looking A plus inky texture to it. And it just adds a little bit to it, doesn't it? But yes. It's simple. It's easy, it's not hard to do, and, like, it really does add a lot, and I use it for almost everything that I make now, that freaking brush set. But yes, so, like, if I even wanted to, I could add it to this guy and see what the heck it does. If I go to open, let's see. Ooh, brushes. Let's see if we can find it just by searching it up. I'm gonna do a dance while I'm waiting. Also, hello, Aussie Dancer. How are you doing? Inky brushes. Here we go. So, like, this is something we're just going to really quickly show you. I can, like, make pages and pages of textures, right? Or of brushes. And I can scan them in and use them for digital pieces. So, like, I did a bunch of different things with my ink to, like, make these odd textures that I could use in my digital pieces with the multiply layer tool and, like, create different textures in my pieces. But yes, technically this piece is multimedia, right? Yes. It's multimedia just because I also use traditional media. But this is the, this guy right here. This top one is the one I was talking about. I just made an inked piece of paper. So if I use the matte tool, and I just copy that guy. It was scanned at a high resolution, so it's going to work out fine. If I took this texture out, if I just, you know, pasted that guy back in there, and I put this onto multiply, it creates this, like, texture underneath it, or above it. Let's see if I can put it underneath, too. I don't know if that'll do anything different. Ooh, interesting. Oh! Oh! But yeah, it's, like, really weird. It's crazy. But yes. You like turn it down if I wanted to. Just add like a little subtle texture. But yeah, it creates this odd texture where like, you know, the natural marks from the paper actually look like the marks that I had made in the piece itself, and it just like adds so much to it. But isn't that cool? You can do anything! You can do whatever the heck you want. If I like turn that up, I decide that I want to just adjust the brightness contrast of that guy. It sits like this. And if I wanted to, I could colorize it as well, just to add a little bit more oomph to it. So I do colorize and use like a sort of the similar blue. It does this sort of thing to it. Like it looks traditional. Isn't that cool, guys? Boom. Hello, Stevis Christ. Hello, Phoenix Death. How you guys doing? I'm getting over my cold, which is awesome. Aussie, I'm glad you're getting over your cold. Colds suck, and it is the season for flus and colds, so I'm glad that at least you're getting over yours. But yes, guys, that is how I use watercolor in Photoshop without using the preset, the pre-made brushes made by Robert Ardell that I was talking about before, which I will show you in a second. But I also want to show you guys what it's like to get started with watercolor paper texture underneath. So let's say, like, I have this paper texture here. It'll just give me, like, a better idea of what my brush will look like over it. And if I decide that, like, you know, pressing really hard down, see how it creates this, it makes this look opaque. I could always, oh, wait, part of that's because I'm on the watercolor texture layer. Okay, guys, I'm gonna start over, just forget everything that I just said. If I press really hard down, it does create, like, more of this, opaqueness to it. I could make this a multiply as well. So, like, if I want to fix up how this shadow looks, I could make this into a freaking multiply layer and it'll still retain that darkness, but just show more of that texture underneath. Yes. Yes. Here we go. Look at that. Doesn't that look like I'm just using a brush to watercolor paint on this guy? Boom. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. It's crazy. Is it better to traditionally create something in color, then change it to grayscale digitally, or to originally paint something using black and gray tones? So Aussie, I'd say that is totally up to you. That is by personal preference. 'Cause, I mean, I'd say it's better to start grayscale. It's better to start using black and gray tones when you're painting. If you were to colorize it in Photoshop, like if you knew that you wanted to use color in it, starting with a black and white image, or change something that's colored to black and white. The difference between those things is that when you're starting with black and white, it's much easier, I find, to see value in black and white. And it's a lot easier to push value in black and white. So, for example, if I were to start in color, and I'm using like reds, and I'm using greens and blues and the whole freaking spectrum, when I'm mixing colors and when I'm making shades and highlights and stuff, I have to squint a lot more to see if I'm using too much mid-tone. So in other words, if everything looks almost the same tone. 'Cause like, I don't know, every color responds differently to value, so it's just like, you know, you gotta work harder to see that when you're using color. Whereas in black and white, since it's just it's monochrome, not monotone, Since it's monochrome, and you're using the darkest darks and the lightest lights, which is black and white, literally, like, it's just easier for you to see the grays in between than it would have been if it were, like, you know, you're seeing reds and blues and you're seeing greens and you're just like, is the green lighter than the red, or is that an illusion? Is the green a darker shade, or is the red just, like, freaking saturated? Like, I can't tell. So, like, I'd say it's easier to start black and white. my favorite thing to do lately, something that I'm actually trying to push more into my own work, is something that you just saw with my piece that I just did with Grex, which is that forest. So let me pull that up one more time. Where the heck am I? Oh! Open. Not new. I go to desktop and I open that freaking forest again. So what I'm doing here is I am using black and white to get started on this, so that I can see all the values that I want to push into it. And this helps me because then I can see, like, you know, the highlights in the trees better, things don't look as mid-tone, so that when I actually do start to color it, which I can even test that right now, if I add a new layer to this, and I call this color, and I make it a multiply layer, which is what you should do if you're coloring black and white in Photoshop or whatever. It's like without colorizing the black and white at all. If I made this into like a... It's just like, you know, you can just add a tint to it and it retains those values that you just had. You know? Isn't that freaking cool though? If I decided that I wanted to colorize that, that tree into like a blue, I can actually like add sort of an undertone to it. Wow, that is so red. That's so crazy. Like lower the saturation of it a little bit. You know, I can do whatever the heck I want with it. Yeah. Or if I decide that I want this tree to be colorized already into like the shade that I want it to be, so it's like this orange or whatever, I can go into this color and I can add the blue values to it by using a blue, putting this on pressure for opacity, nice, and going over those parts of it. Maybe a little bit later, that I want it to have like a slight blue tint to it. I can just mess with some of the values too that way. So like I find it easier to work with black and white before turning it into color, just because of those reasons with, like, you know, being able to see value. But the only thing is, something that I noticed using black and white and colorizing it is that, or turning it like this, like doing it the way that I'm doing, is that it's a lot harder to make it look saturated. It's like a lot harder to make the colors bright, I guess. So like just keep that in mind, that like for me anyway, I don't know if other people have the same problem, but for me, when I'm working black and white and turning it into color, those pieces end up looking dull. But like for me, I like dullness in my pieces. I don't know why I'm like obsessed with it, but like I like having a dimmer shade. Hold on a minute. I just want to make sure that I get rid of all this stuff. There we go. Alright, we're out of here. And there we go. We're back here with the spaghetti monster, as you guys were talking about earlier. It's the spaghetti and meatballs, man. But yeah. God bless. You should print screen it and keep it for future emote. Okay, so like, yeah. This is how I work with watercolor in Photoshop. Now I'm gonna show you guys the, Robert Ardell, his watercolor set really quick. And how freaking cool it is. I'm gonna turn everything off here. I'm gonna put them all in one group here, so I can just turn it all off. Alright, nice. So here we are, with my blank canvas. Now, I'm gonna write the name of him in the chat really quick. So let me see. Robert Ardell. Watercolor brush set for Photoshop. Let me look up his watercolor set so that you guys have it. Robert Ardell brushes from paintingdigitally.com. Here we go. So this will make it easier for you guys if you don't want to mess too much with your own brushes and things like that, Robert Ardill is I believe he's an Irishman, who had struggled with like trying to use like pre-made tools from like Corel Painter and like from what Photoshop was trying to do, and just like, you know, all these what is it, Art Rage, like the ones that were those are the programs that are trying to mimic traditional mediums more than like Photoshop does, but like they just were not doing enough to like make it watercolory. I don't know, it just didn't work out like that much, because like all the watercolor brushes and like these programs do these weird like color changing scattery, like it's just too fancy, man. It's too fancy. We don't need all this fancy stuff. So like Robert Ardill came up with this whole entire watercolor set where he used textures from his traditional work and he scanned them, and he used his own brush presets and things like that, and he put them into a zip file and he sends them to you. But it's great. It's $20, but it comes with the paper textures, like his own paper textures. It comes with the brushes, and it comes with like the smudge tools and the erasers that he uses and things like that. Hello, Sasa, how you doing? I'm doing great, thank you for asking. I'm almost done giving my watercolor tutorial, so I'm pretty excited that you guys are still hanging around and watching for me. Alright, here we go. So when I use his watercolor brushes, these are all of the watercolor tools that he has included in his watercolor set, which is freaking awesome. It comes with both dry medium brushes like pencil brush. It comes with ink brushes, sumi brushes, calligraphy brushes. It comes with scratchy dry brushes. It comes with regular watercolor brushes, fractal brushes, fan brushes. It's just like just a bunch of crazy stuff. And it also comes with brushes that have like a wet edge. So it's like he just goes a little bit further into the watercolor effects by like actually creating these brushes that have them already, rather than you having to like make them yourself. But yes, he is indeed the GOAT of watercolors, TJ. But yeah, I love this guy. So here we go. What's great about his watercoloring process is he came up with his own like actions also on the panel here. There's an actions panel that if you click on what you want, it's like if you click on the action that you want to happen, Photoshop will do all of the things necessary to do that. So like if you have like a bunch of like, if you go to like image something and like, you know, create blah 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 blah, instead of always having to go through that process, you could make it into an action and just click it and it'll do all that work for you and make it for you. So what Robert Ardill did is he created all of these different actions, and the action that is the most useful for this is the new watercolor layer option. So if I click on that, let's see, or the watercolor paper layer, hold on a minute. Watercolor layer, yeah, hold on a minute. Watercolor paper is what I'm looking for. Make watercolor paper. If I go make watercolor paper, he also has like a rough option, which is like cold press paper, hot press paper, whatever. So here's hot press watercolor paper. If I press on that, it does all these fancy things, and it adds in this watercolor texture for me, which is pretty freaking cool, to the whole entire canvas, which is another awesome thing. I prefer hot press watercolor paper, because it's like a little smoother, it just has like a more subtlety to it. Whereas if I undid this action, let's see, will it let me undo it? Okay, well if I just like get rid of the watercolor paper, which it comes with like an overlay. Like what he did to create these, like create watercolor, is he added overlays and he created paper underneath. So if I just erase all that stuff. Wow. Except for that one. If I made cold press watercolor paper, oh boy, or not. Hold on a minute. There's a lot of things happening. Let me just make a whole new file for you, because I think this is kind of starting to get some technical difficulties. Alright, 4x4. Here we go. If I make watercolor paper. Okay. Apparently I can't at the moment. I don't know why it's doing that. Alright guys, I guess I'm having some technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. Alright, I'm just gonna leave it like this, it's fine. Alright, so I have my watercolor So I have my watercolor layer, and it's great. I'm gonna show you guys what his watercolor brushes do. So like, what I can do to mess with these textures, if I don't like how much texture is showing, I can go into the paper overlay, unlock it, and work with these layers that he made. So if I go to the pattern and I like lower the opacity, and if I go into the gray and I lower the opacity, it will actually show a little bit less of that texture. So like, you can see it really subtly. If I zoom in a bit more, now you like turn this down, it makes it either darker or lighter. So I'm gonna leave it like this because I think that the texture is actually pretty nice. And I create a watercolor layer. New watercolor layer. Boom. So here I am, and what he does is he keeps everything in multiply. And that's up to you if you want to do that. So here we go. If I go into this whole brush palette, let's say like I want to use the wash brush, just a regular wash. It will take me to like, it'll just do all these preset things. And look at that. Isn't that so nice? I can go over it again. Get darker. Yeah. So it basically does the same thing that I was teaching you guys, but just like the brushes themselves are a lot fancier. If I want to do with a wet edge, right? And I have like a darker blue. Check that out. Check that out. So like, what that does is it creates this effect where like, sometimes in watercolor, as the watercolor dries, sometimes the pigment will pool to the edges of the water put down. And it'll create this effect, which is like this pooling on the edges. It makes things slightly darker around the edges because there's just more pigment settling there. So like, he has created this effect somehow with his brush presets. And like, if you go to the brush presets here, you'll find out how he did that. With all the smoothing the wet edges. Boom. So you could always do it yourself, but like, I'm just saying, Robert Arnold did all this stuff for you, and he has like scanned his own textures for you for his pencils and his brush pens and stuff. I love the ink pens, so I'm going to show you guys how the Chinese ink looks. So if I'm just like, new watercolor layer, boom. And I'm just like, hey. So isn't that cool? So it kind of has like this like angled brush that also has these jagged edges to it. And it really responds to how much pressure you're using with your brush, which is awesome. But I'm obsessed with this brush. I use this brush all the freaking time when I want to make like traditional ink drawings and things like that. And then Sumi brushes, which is really cool as well. It kind of has the same sort of effect, but it's more rounded. But yeah, as you like look down, it has like sort of randomizing with the brush. If you really zoom in, if I like turn this brush up, you'll see that it's like, you know, a bunch of separated brushes in a brush. Isn't that pretty cool? And it just creates a bunch of separate marks that act as one mark. Yeah, I love this pen tool. I love this freaking thing. Okay, let me make another watercolor layer. Boom. Oop. Sponge. Kind of weird. Don't like it that much, but you know. Let's see, leaf. Wow! Gorgeous. Wash brush, wash effect. So it has like these effect brushes as well. So like if you had already put down pigment or whatever and you just want to add an effect to it, he also has those sorts of brushes here as well, which is pretty freaking awesome. Thick and thin fuzzy. Ooh, it's so fuzzy. Holy crap. Oh, I like the squirrel one too. Squirrel brush. Because like as you turn your pen, it also turns. Boom. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. The hake, which is really cool. But yeah, it just comes with a bunch of brushes that mimic traditional brushes. I don't know. I'm gonna show you, like, let's say, like, one more. The glazing brush, which, you know, if you go over, it just adds a glaze. And it automatically puts you on a pigment. So, like, it's like, you know, I want this to be glazed a little bit with yellow or whatever. Yeah, nice. Boom. Heck yeah. And then the dry bristle. So it looks as though you just picked up the pigment and you didn't add any water to it. So it creates like this sort of effect. But yeah, like this is super useful. And look how traditional this already looks. I had made all these marks and it looks as though I had just scanned this from like a piece of paper, right? It's cool. Black bundled spaghettis. You're making me hungry, dude. All right. Gotta delete all this stuff. I have so many layers. Ah! Oh, I'm making more layers. That's what's happening. Ha! Ignore that. I got sleep last night. I don't know why I'm doing all these weird things today. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna show you guys if I make a watercolor layer. Whoa. I'm gonna just use the regular watercolor wash. I do a soft wash. Look how weird that brush looks, dude. If I add like a red. Ooh. It's like if I want to make a wash on my paper. It looks so good! I want to use wash round. Boom. There we go. That's what I wanted to use. So here we go. And then I can kind of like layer over that. If I go into the smudge tools, I could go into, here we go. These are all of the different smudge tools that he has provided you if you download this thing. It's only $20. I seriously recommend it. Hello, Edelnell. We must have only layers. Hey, Terminator Dan. How you doing, dude? So if I do, like, smudge bleed, it will create the effect of the watercolor bleeding into another color. So, like, you know, you wouldn't typically use it as like a, oh, I need to smudge it like crazy. You would typically use it more as like a, to kind of create this bleed effect. So, like, I would just kind of swipe it. If I wanted to use a smudge blender, this literally blends the watercolor. And now it looks like I had just painted it. It's so good. I love this thing. I love this. I love this tool. Smudge delicate, really light, soft, gentle smudge. Smudge darken. We can only guess what that does. Ooh! I'm having way too much fun right now. Smudge bristle. It's just like, you know, to create kind of a texturized smudge. Blender scattered. Let's add some blue to it and see what the heck happens. Oh, that's the scatter. So it scatters around. Ooh. Add water fade. So this is like adding water. This is like sort of what it looks like if you just press on it. Yeah, this is like I'm adding splatters of water, man. Flow paint. Ooh, yikes. I don't like that one. Smudge wet diffuser. Do it! Oh my god. I'm just honestly I like this. Drippy water. Yeah. But yeah, check out all these freaking effects from Robert Ardell, everybody. Rye sound effects are the best. Thanks! It's 8:50 p.m. over there. Dang, dude. Alright, nice. So, that's pretty cool. There you go. Let's say if I wanted to, like, you know, all of these actions make the entire layer, have a certain effect. So, like, if I do make edges, everything that I had drawn here suddenly has an edge to it. And it looks like, it really looks watercolory just because it looks like those, moments had, like, the pooling, like I was talking about before, the pooling of the pigment from the wetness. You know what I mean. If I undo that, can I undo it or no? I guess not! Alright, if I do make edges fat, what happens? Holy crap! Stop that. Wow. I'm doing all these things and it's telling me that I can't do these things anymore. I'm just like, well, too freaking bad. I'm gonna do it anyway. Grain brush? Hold on. Alright. Is it because I'm in the... Oh, here we go. So this is what it does. It makes a new layer that creates that effect, which is pretty cool. Edges. Watercolor layer. So if I like just deleted those actions, like it deletes like those layers that had created those new effects. So that's pretty cool. If I do grain brush, or not, there it goes. It doesn't really do much. Scratch line, gradient map, no. Make edges strong. Ooh, too strong. It's too strong for me. Yeah, I like this. I think my favorite effect so far has been the make pooling effect. I really like that. Watermark layer? Oh, very nice. You know, hold on a minute. Let me apply it to this layer. Oh, so it adds a mask to it. All right, I'm like learning a bunch of new things as I'm doing this as well. I really like doing this, man. Hello, Kiroken. Welcome to the stream, my friend. Rai, you should archive your tutorial streams that you do so they stay on Twitch forever. Then you get more reach because tutorial vids always get more reach. Oh my god, Crystal! I didn't even know that you can do that! Well, I'm gonna have to do that from now on. I'll have to figure out how to archive them then. Just like uploading them, I mean? Woo! Alright. So there you go, guys. I think that's pretty much like the most I can tell you about making watercolor in Photoshop. Do you guys have any questions about how to use watercolor in Photoshop? Because then I can answer them up. We can see how it goes. Because otherwise, I guess we could just like, I don't know. Maybe I can make up for the fact that I can't do Doodle Bomb by doing a little bit of doodles for you. Doing doodly doodles. Could you put them on your website, Rai? I probably could. I mean, yeah, my website's more for my, like, more for the actual work, but I could always put my tutorials in my log, which is like something that's on my website, because I use carbonmade.com, and it has like a section that's sort of like a blog, so then I can just put it on my blog, things like that. When you finish the stream, you just look at the stream in past broadcasts and highlight the video. Super simple. Alright, cool. I have a question, but it's not related to watercolors. Shoot him! Shoot it! Do it! Ask me your question. Yeah, I really love this test. This is looking really nice. You could always do a YouTube channel for your lessons. I could. I'm screaming. You guys are so nice. I really appreciate it. I should definitely make something like this, because I feel like it really means a lot to me that you guys have all come and responded to my tutorials, because, like, you know, I work hard on, like, making sure that I can explain all these things as simple as possible for any new artists, for any aspiring artists, and for anyone that uses Photoshop but doesn't know about all these cool features and things like that. So I'm glad that you guys like them so much. Is your Skillshare good for anime, what the heck? Anime or manga? Probably not. If you need help, feel free to shoot me a message. Thank you, Crystal! Crystal, you're so sweet. Bless. Thank you. Alright. Here we go. What the heck do I do now? If I finish the tutorial, what the heck do I do? I'm thinking about it. Maybe I could try to mess more with brush settings and see what the heck we can make? What do you think? Dang, dude. I like turn off the watercolor. Oh, it's so nice. That's crazy, man. Alright. Let's mess with some brushes, I guess. I kind of want to know, like, if I can make any more of these crazy things. So am I on my normal one right now? Yeah. A normal brush with my normal opacity. Let's see what I can do. If I do wet edges, does it do the same thing? Yeah, it does! Hey! That's pretty cool. Let's just see what all these things do. So actually, let me go back to my watercolor brush and see if I can make it look even more the way that I want it to. If I turn transfer off, and I just go build up. I like the wet edges thing a lot, but oh! I like having the noise a little bit. Okay, I think I like to keep it that way. What's the best poor person Photoshop? Because I don't want to buy Photoshop. I totally understand the struggle! Okay, so I'd say if you use a PC, Sai is a really good alternative to Photoshop because it has a lot of really nice brushes and a lot of customization options. GIMP is another one that people recommend. I'm not really sure how that one works because I haven't really used that one. Fire Alpaca is another free one that's really, really good. It works for Mac users too. Sai, unfortunately, does not work for Mac users. But Fire Alpaca is pretty similar to Sai, so that's another good one. Something that's free but doesn't have as many options as its pro version is Sketchbook Express. It's something that I used to use. And I used to use Sketchbook Pro as well, but like Sketchbook Express has a lot of different tools that you can use. Professionals use Sketchbook Express and Sketchbook Pro, but Express is like the lower version of Pro so that you don't have to pay for anything. The only thing is that it limits you to 3 layers, so that's kind of poopy, but it does have a lot of different things to use in it, so I would recommend that, especially for people that like to sketch a lot, because it has some really nice pencils, pencil-based brushes that are really nice. What's your favorite thing to draw or create? Favorite thing to draw? Ah, jeez. I don't know. I really like drawing people. I don't know if that's like an acceptable answer because it's kind of generic, but like I like drawing people. I like drawing wings a lot. And I gotta say, I've really started to get into background drawing, which is really weird because like I used to never draw backgrounds. I used to hate to draw backgrounds. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate because it seems so complicated. But like, I hate drawing geometrical backgrounds. So I hate drawing cities, I hate drawing like streets and houses and things like that. Like, I like drawing organic things. So I really like to draw trees, I like to draw rocks and hills and caves and things like that. Because, like, once you get into, like, the precise, like, it's supposed to look a certain way, like, specifically, it's kind of hard for me to, like, want to draw that as a background. Yeah. At least with, like, nature stuff, you can kind of wing it, and people won't really notice, you know? Okay, let's see. What else are you guys asking? I want to make sure. But I always get what you guys are saying. Macs are rip-offs. Alright, but to be fair, Macs are really good for artists. Like, it has a much cleaner quality to it, and it's a lot, I don't know, a lot easier to navigate, at least for me. Kirikan says that they have Medibang paint, and it's good. That's pretty cool. Alright. Yeah, Corel Painter as well, yes, like TJ said. I used to also use Corel Painter. It's nice for line arts and brushes, but I wouldn't use it for anything like coloring and editing. And I would agree with that. I used to color a lot. I used to use Corel Painter for, like, everything. But some of the brushes were a little bit odd because, like, there's a watercolor brush that I used to always use in that, where, like, the edges would have this weird, like, it'd be like the way that they made the watercolor effect, unlike Robert Ardell, the master here, they, like, added these weird blends to the ends of, like, the edges, and it created, like, this white edge on everything. So even if you were coloring, if you weren't on a white piece of paper, then it would show, and it was just like, it was weird. Yeah. Corel's weird. I have never heard of Kirita, if that's what you pronounce it as. I've never heard of that. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions about different kinds of art programs, let me know, and I can tell you my experience with them, if I've had any experience with them. Alright. Let's see how this brush works now that I just messed with it. I still don't like that. It's super, super spaced out, so I'm gonna actually fix it even more with that scattering. I like the scatter, but where's the... No, I like this. I like that scatter. I'll leave it like that, but... Is it jitter? What is it, man? Oh! Oh, it looks like it's alive! Blah. Ew, it's so gross looking when I move it. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. That's so creepy. Bruh. Nah, I like this. That was so weird looking. That was so weird. Okay, no texture. I like the noise. Brush pose. No, I like the 0. It's fine. What was it that I was looking at before? Oh. Nope. Why is it a block now? What did I do? Here, let's see. Did I turn something off? I must have. What did I turn off? Uh-oh, guys, I did a boo-boo. Is Paint Tool Sci free? Yes, it is. I have also used Art Rage. Okay, so Aussie, my illustration teacher in college was super into Art Rage, and she also used to use things like, even like the iPad, with Art Rage, I think. But yeah, she was crazy about it. It didn't really work on my computer for some reason, but, from the little that I used of it, it was a pretty good, program for things that you wanted to make look traditional. It had really good oil paints, Like, things look pretty realistic in that program, but, it was still hard for my computer to handle, so, like, I'm not sure if there's, like, an issue with that or what. I want to know why this thing is doing that weird thing. Hello, Zartab! How are you doing? Okay, I'm still trying to figure out this, Alright, that's fine. But now, how the heck did the shape... Like, it wasn't my fault. Oh, technical difficulties. Hold on a minute. Let me see if it happened to all of them. No, it didn't! Hey! Alright, let me see what this one has that the other one doesn't. I kind of like this, actually. I really like this brush. Huh. What the heck happened to this guy? Oh, geez! Okay, it's back to normal. Okay! I'll take it, I guess! Right, here we go. Alright, I like that. Nice. Here we go. Let's make a freaking flower. Let's do it. Let's see what happens by using all of these effects. How I actually do. Making a watercolor piece. So if I put that action, make watercolor layer. Let's see what happens. This is with the brush that I made up. So far so good. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty watercolory. And I can probably take screenshots of the watercolor brush that I made if you guys want to use it too. So let me know. And obviously I probably have to blend this a little bit. You guys excited for the weekend? Because I'm pumped! Tomorrow, I'm going to see Panic at the Disco with my best friends. TJ in the chat, and Reese and Rory. I am so freaking excited, dude. Oh my god. I've been thinking about it all day. I've been trying to, like, memorize all the lyrics for Panic at the Disco. Oh, been trying to learn all the Death of a Bachelor lyrics, and I want to die. It's so hard. Okay, let's see. Do I want to do bleed? Add water, fade, paint plume. Let's see what happens if I do smudge. No. Add water. So it mimics sort of what would happen if I added water to it. Luminant, I'm going too. Are you seriously? Because that'd be pretty cool. Yo. This is pretty. You're pretty, TJ. Oh my god. Thanks, man. Yeah, Panic at the Disco, Aussie. I'm so excited. I may never. Yes. Listen. I love that song, but it's not on the album. It's not on the new album. Hopefully he sings songs from Vices and Virtues, because that is my favorite album. Oh my god, I'm so obsessed with it. Rai, take me with you. Kiroken! Okay, get in the bag. Let's go. Let's go. I'm taking a small bag. If you could fit in a really tiny, like, hand-sized bag, then you're in, dude. Hey, Rai, I drew this rough, weird thing of you and Teej. I'm gonna click it. It looks so cute! Grex! I love that! Grex, why are you so cute? What the heck? I love that. I had a lot of fun with it, but it's kind of bizarre. I mean, it's bizarre, but like, isn't art supposed to be weird sometimes? Like, you're fine. It's nothing that I haven't seen before. Also, hey, one thing I forgot to mention is that Robert Artle also has a bunch of different erasers that you can use. Which is pretty freaking weird, isn't it? Dang, dude. I'm just gonna keep using the brush or the eraser that I have. Let's see. I want to see what happens if I use that blooming one, because I really like it. Is this the one that I want? No. Crap, it was the one that was like drippy water? Smudge fade. The second one? What's the second one do? Oh! It's still smudgy smudge. It's wet diffuser. Oh! Hecky! Who did that? Who did that thing? My brother! Oh my god! Hey! Fire Dragon 764, who is my brother Nick. Thank you so much for the host, my friend. Bless. Oh my god. It makes me very happy to see everyone inspired by Rice stream. Well, same, Slothano. Oh my god, okay, listen. It's so important to me to spread creativity and to make people feel like they can do this if they want to do it. So, like, it means a lot to me that since I've been starting the stream, people have been so, like, adamant about wanting to start up their art again. Like, it just means a lot to me. Let's see. Oh my freaking god, that is so many people! Oh my god. My brother! How you doing, dude? I love you, dude. Eki, yes, sir. I came from Fi-Fi stream. Well, hello, welcome to the fun art stream. I just did a tutorial on how to use watercolor in Photoshop, and it's gonna be VODed if anyone wants to know all the things that I talked about during the stream. But yeah, I'm so excited! Welcome, guys! Alright, so like, right now I'm showing my viewers how to use the brush that I made to like make a watercolory effect in Photoshop. So like I can even like, I'm gonna repeat sort of like what I said before for any newcomers. In my stream, I usually do art tutorials on Thursdays, and then I work on my own work during the week. Sundays have me working on work and also doodle bombs, which is when anyone can come in and request a really quick funny little doodle for me that I will draw live on stream for you. And it always results in some crazy canvas ending that like is just conglomerate of insanity, and it's really, really fun. And yeah, I also do some art games once in a while, so I'll play like some Pictionary type games online with my viewers sometimes. It's just a lot of fun. Which I could always do that at the end of the stream for you guys. But yeah, I'm gonna actually show you guys what I taught some of my viewers today, really quickly, just like in terms of how to make a watercolory effect in Photoshop. If you want to, for instance, like what I was saying earlier is, if you really enjoy doing watercolor traditionally, and you wish you were able to do that digitally, like, you know, because digitally, obviously, you have a lot more, there's pros and cons of using digital versus traditional. Digitally, obviously, you could use the Control-Z tool if you did something wrong, instead of having to, like, either erase it or you did something permanent that you can't erase traditionally. You could use a lot more tools. You could use, like, you know, lots of smudge tools. You could have, like, colorizing tools and create layers and things like that, which layers are so freaking useful when you want to make big pieces too, like, you know, so that you don't mess with other parts of your painting, but you know what I mean. Alright, I'm so pumped right now. Okay, so like, I'm gonna show you guys what I taught my viewers today. So like, if you wanted to, like, if you're like into using watercolor in general, let's see. If you're used to using watercolor traditionally, I'm going to teach you how you can also translate that digitally. So, what I did was first, I showed my viewers how to make, like, how to make a transparent brush, and how to use transparency like you would traditionally with watercolor, to create a piece digitally that looks like watercolor. So, like, if I go to my brushes right now, what I did was I started with like a typical brush that you would use in Photoshop, just a regular one that has like just regular smoothing settings and everything, just looks like a regular drawing, like this. So like this is the way that my pen usually looks. If I turn off pressure for opacity, which is a different thing. This is the way that it usually looks. Just really smooth, responds to all my swipes and things like that. Just, you know, looks like a normal freaking pen. But, you know, if I want to go a little further, and I want to make it look more like a watercolor brush would look, on the right here are a bunch of different little tools that I have set up. It's like a bunch of different, like menus. So, like, this is the brush menu, which looks like a cup with a bunch of brushes in it. If you click on that guy, it'll show you the current, it'll show you, oh my god! Okay, first of all, I should probably say this before I continue. Thank you so much, SkyStones, for the follow, and welcome to the flock. I hope that you, enjoy your stay, and I'm really glad that, I can entertain you so far, so thank you very much for the support. And also, Zargo, 333, thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the flock. Same to you. I am so glad that you are enjoying the stream so far, and I look forward to spending more time with you. Getting so much love! My god. And thank you so much, Seb, for the auto-host. God bless. Okay, so, like, as I was saying before, you can go into your brush settings here, your brush preset settings, and on the left here, you'll see all of the different effects that you can give to your brush. And by clicking on these guys, and by, messing with the sliders on the right here, you can actually mess with the way that your brush looks. So, like, if I go to scattering, if I turn that guy on, and I move the slider here, check out what the heck that does. Isn't that freaking weird? Looks like a freaking rave party in here. So, like, I can do whatever the heck I want with any of these effects. Like, I can do whatever I think looks nice. So, like, if I wanted to make a watercolor looking brush, if I'm like, you know, I gotta think about, okay, what does a watercolor brush typically look like traditionally? and I'd think, you know, okay, when I'm painting with watercolor, like on paper, the edges sort of bleed a little bit. Maybe I'll have wet edges. Maybe it's, you know, it blends into one another, like the marks blend into one another a lot easier. So like I can go into like all these different effects and create wet edges with the wet edges tool, which is pretty great. Can create like more transparency by adding transfer to it and things like that. But like, just like, you know, go into all these different things, mess with what you want your brush to look like. But like, we ended up making this brush together here at the bottom, which I call my watercolor brush. And what I did was I made shape dynamics. I turned it on, and then I had like, you know, turn the sliders any which way, turn on scattering, turn on transfer, turn on smoothing, and things like that. But yeah, it's great. So like, you can make whatever heck kind of a brush that you want for whatever medium that you want to mimic in Photoshop. Because like, you know, a lot of people are nervous that like with just the brushes that they got default in Photoshop, you can't do very much, or like you have to go online and buy a bunch of sets that people have made, pre-made for Photoshop, or like you have to download all these things. No, you can literally mess with the default brushes in Photoshop to try and get like whatever effects that you want. And like it's really easy because already with all this stuff that I had just started, that brush that I had just made before with my viewers already makes this look like a watercolor painting. So that's pretty cool, right? You can do anything you want with the default stuff without spending any money whatsoever. So yes, I am here to help you do that. I am here to help you not spend a lot of money. Oh my gosh. And yes, thank you so much to Sneasel and Grexy for posting the link to the Discord. If you guys are interested in talking to each other and making some friends and family, feel free to join the Discord. The link is in the chat and also down below in my chat rules section. And everyone's invited to the party, and I love you so much. Alright, so let's see. One of the biggest things that I taught people about using watercolor in Photoshop is the use of transparency. Because obviously, watercolor traditionally is supposed to utilize transparency in pigment. And supposed to utilize the white of the paper that you're painting on to create lighter colors. So like, unlike oil paint and unlike acrylics and unlike whatever kind of opaque medium you're using, like wash, watercolor is supposed to be translucent, and it's supposed to like, you know, instead of adding white, right, with paint, it's supposed to use the white of the paper. So like, you're building up your watercolor rather than like, I don't know, like piling it on, like step by step. I mean, you could use watercolor that way, but like, you'd probably end up spending a lot more money than you need to because of how many tubes of paint you'd have to use. Alright, so like, watercolor is all about layering and all about building up, and it's all about utilizing the white of the paper. One way that I was teaching the viewers, one way to make a digital piece look even more like watercolor, is to add texture. So like, if I were to add, like, let's say I scanned a piece of my watercolor paper, like this. So like in the background you see like there's this watercolor paper texture. Without that there, if I turn the paper off, without that there, obviously it's just the canvas of Photoshop, the canvas that Photoshop had already given me, which is just this white, textureless, blank piece of canvas. So like, you know, the piece that I had made, this watercolor painting that I'm making, it looks like a watercolor painting still, but it doesn't quite have enough of that feeling of that traditional watercolor. So like, I can go online, look up a watercolor paper texture. I can, you know, as long as it's like free use or whatever, I can scan my own piece of watercolor paper, and all I have to do, I think I still have that copied, right? Oh geez, that's the wrong texture. Well, if I go on freaking Google right now, I'm gonna show you how freaking easy it is. If I go up, watercolor paper texture, like I did before. Already, like the first thing that pops up right here is a pretty good example of watercolor paper texture. If I were just to copy this right now, it's a free vector, so hopefully I won't get in trouble for using it. I can just go and paste that guy in there, right? say like I kind of like make it a little bit bigger. Obviously, if you want to use your own watercolor paper, I recommend scanning at a high resolution so that when you blow it up or shrink it, it still looks not blurry, it still looks nice. Alright, if I turn this into a multiply layer, what a multiply layer does is it turns the layer like that I just turned into a multiply layer, it makes that transparent in a sense that like it shows what's underneath it while retaining the texture it still has. So like anything underneath it will still have will still be affected by the textures of this paper without covering anything. So like if I decide that this is a little bit too intense, I could always lower the opacity, make it so that the texture is not as intense. But yes. Woo! So like, yeah. That's just like the basics of using watercolor in Photoshop. And also using opacity in your layers, using opacity in the brush itself that you're using. So if I were to turn the opacity down, makes it so that I can layer on top of it. It's like lighter. If I had this at 100%, it'd be like this, for instance. Then if I turn on pressure for opacity, what that does is when I'm pressing down, when I'm starting to draw, the lighter I press, the lighter the pigment will be. The darker I press, the darker the pigment will be. And also the thicker the lines. Oh my god! First of all, Sergi YN, I did not say thank you very much yet, but thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the flock, as well as you, Jodavify? I have no idea how to pronounce your name, but I hope I did it right, or at least good enough, but thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the flock, my friends! I hope that you enjoy your stay, and I'm glad that you are enjoying the stream so far. Thank you so much for the support! Oh my god! I love you guys, my god. My brother's so supportive. I really appreciate him coming in and doing this for me. But also, hello Zargo333. I want to say hi to a bunch of people who are watching, like, real quick. And who are chatting with me. So thank you hello to Zargo. Hello to, also Rob M105. Thanks for the auto host. And, I love you guys. Alright. Honestly, Rye, you helped me a lot getting my creativity back and be more confident and less hard on myself. The creativity channel on your Discord is like the first place I started sharing my drawings with strangers, and it says a lot. So, Thano, it means so much to me to hear that, and it means a lot that, like, I can help you, like, get more in touch with your creativity and feel confident in your work. Because you know what? It's stupid when artists are all uppity and like act like they're the ones that know the most about everything, and that anyone who isn't an artist or anyone who is either like, you know, just starting in art are somehow not as valuable as them, or somehow don't know as much about art as them. And I just think it's so important as artists, like, we're trying to get people's attention and trying to, like, you know, teach things through our work or make people think and all that fun stuff. But like, how could you do that if you're trying to close the minds of so many people by saying that they don't know what they're doing and things like that? So it means a lot that I could create a community for a lot of these new artists and for a lot of you guys who don't know really where to start with art but wanted to get started with art. Like, I just wanted to be as comfortable and open-minded as possible, my community, so that, like, everyone can embrace each other's mistakes and embrace each other's, you know, masterpieces. Because you know what? Honestly, like, drawing a really good stick figure is enough for me. Like, I'm so pumped for you guys. It is, exactly, like Sneasel said, art is subjective. And if you like it, if you're having fun with it, then screw everybody else! You're having a good time! Just like, you know, it's so important, and my teachers have told me this time and time again, not to compare yourself to other artists either. Because you know what? There will always be someone out there, and I promise you this, there will always be someone out there that likes the way that you do it, more than they like how the crazy, you know, Picasso of the century does it. There will always be someone that, you know, you might look at your art and compare it to freaking, you know, like Stan Lee or whatever, you're like a comic artist, and you're just like, man, I will never get that good. Or man, like, I don't know even where to start. Like, he just knows what he's doing. I'm never gonna get that good. I'm never gonna get that popular. But you know what? All that does is, like, limit yourself. And, like, all that does is make it harder for you to keep chugging. And you gotta just keep chugging. You gotta just be like, you know what? I'll get there. And you know what? It took Stan Lee some time. It took Picasso some time. It took Leonardo da Vinci some time to get good. No one started with, like, an epiphany. No one was born and was just like, suddenly they have, like, a freaking mustache and a palette and they're, like, come out of the womb with a palette. Like, no one does that. It's important for everybody to, like, realize that it is about practice. It is about, learning from each other and from, like, using examples, of course. But, like, you will get there. As long as you believe in yourself and as long as you keep making art, you will get there. And, like I said, there will always be someone out there that likes your work more than they like Stan Lee's, more than they like Leonardo da Vinci, more than they like Picasso. So, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You might think that your art looks pretty terrible, but, like, there will always be someone out there that likes your work more. Alright. Without further ado, I'm gonna actually get started, get finished with painting this flower here, because I'm just trying to show you guys how I use different tools. And hello, CMAT10123. Hello. Thank you, Eki, so much for coming and watching. I really appreciate the support. And oh my god, God bless. Zargo, Leonardo, get good, get on my level. Sergi YN, hello, welcome to the chat. Motivational speeches. Yeah, man. I'm all about that motivation. Alright. Now I'm actually going to show you guys how I actually work. So let's get back on that. Back on that grind. Let's see. I really want to do one day in my streams, like, some sort of thing where, like, I have to draw something in less than a certain amount of time, which I've done that once before. But, like, I want to do it where, like, it's sort of like a speed paint. Like, maybe, like, speed paint Sunday or something crazy like that. I can show you guys, like, how ridiculous my art looks if I try to do it super fast in, like, 5 minutes. Like, someone's like, draw a watermelon in 5 minutes, and I'm just like, ugh! And it looks like, I don't know, a blob. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna use a different blender for this. Let's do drippy water. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Woohoo! Speed paint Sunday. It might be a fun little thing to do one day. Okay, let's see. Add a little bit of blue to the bottom of this. And see what the heck happens. I suddenly, like, don't like the way these petals look. Her. Alright, let's see what happens if I do that crazy thing that it told me to do with the pooling. Ooh! It's a little bit too much pooling, in my opinion. So if I undo that, let me get rid of that pooling. If I do, make edges? Nah, I'm not gonna do it. I kind of like the idea of making the edges of the stem, though, different. So if I Puts on a new layer. Make that pooled. No! Wrong one. Okay, let's see. I just add it to this guy. That's better. There we go. I like that. How do you blend without the watercolor set purchased? What brush would you recommend? Alright, so let me show you guys the kind of blend brush that I use. It's a custom-made brush that I made, which I was showing you before, but I could show you again. Hold on a second. Woo! I've been talking so much, I'm dying over here. Alright, so here we go. So, like, what he means by, instead of the watercolor set purchase, because like I was showing you guys how to make your own watercolor brushes in Photoshop with the default, but someone that I had recommended was Robert Ardill, which is Ardill. He is an artist, an Irish artist, who made a watercolor set for Photoshop specifically. That makes it a lot easier for any artist that wants to try and use watercolor in Photoshop, because he has pre-made brushes, pre-made watercolor paper textures, pre-made smudge tools, pre-made erasers, and all that other stuff. And yeah, so like, he's someone great to look up. But yeah, the set costs $20, but like, it's really nice, and I would recommend using it. If you are going to be watercoloring in Photoshop a lot, I really recommend this guy. But if you want to skip all that crazy paying for watercolor brushes bullcrap, then what you can do, like I was doing before, is just, you know, mess with the brushes that are already in Photoshop. So like, personally, I do not like any of the smudge tools that come with the default Photoshop when you first get it. Like, they make everything look too smooth in my opinion. And to me, they act more like blur tools, which just make things a little muddy. So the way that I like to blend is with this pre-made brush that I made, is with this guy. So like, what I did was, all I had to do was I went to like a regular airbrush. So like, there are a bunch of default airbrushes in Photoshop, and I think anyone will do. If you click on one of those airbrushes, so like if you go into this this menu here, there should be more brushes than there are here, like, because I customized mine. But there should be airbrushes available for you. If you click on one of those and you go to this cup with the brushes in it, and you click on it, it will show you, again, like I said before, all these different ways of customizing your brush. So I took screenshots of my smudge tool earlier that I will be posting on my Discord, so that you guys will have some references if you do want to use this specific smudge tool. But instead of it being like a regular blending brush where it's just like one smooth like line that all it does is like blur the edges of things, I made it so that it scatters. So like, if I turn on scattering, this is what it does. If I turn it off, this is what it does. But I turn on scattering so that like, it kind of creates a texturized way of blending. And this is my favorite thing to do, because like, when I draw in Photoshop, sometimes I don't even use the smudge tool. Sometimes all I do is use the pressure for opacity and select colors between the colors I want to blend, and slowly just like add pigment to it until it looks like a gradient. But that's like a lot of work and a lot of time. So like, once in a while I'll use this guy just to speed up the process a little bit, or to smooth out edges that I don't want to be hard anymore. So like, just go into your preset with an airbrush, and then turn on the transfer, turn on the brush pose, turn on noise. And like I said before, I did take screenshots of this, but just mess with the sliders. Again, like if I turn the scattering up, it makes all these things go out even further, because obviously you're scattering it. I'll put that back to where it was. It was like about, what, 40 something? It's like 48. Was it about there? I think so. Messing with my own brushes just for you guys. Transfers on, which this is what that does. So like, without transfer on, the smudge will be a lot more opaque. So to make it a little bit more subtle, because I like to build up my smudge, I'll turn on the transfer, which makes all those edges sort of transparent. Brush pose doesn't really do much, I suppose, but it's sort of like if you had a brush that was tilted a certain way, you can mess with like how it's tilted as you're drawing. Like let's say like you were to make a calligraphy brush, right, in Photoshop, you don't want it to just be like a straight edge, you'd kind of want it to be slightly tilted, sort of like, I don't know, to make it look fancy schmancy, I suppose. Let's see. I added some noise to it to add just a little bit of texture on the edges, which is what you see here, these little tiny rough edges here. And then I added smoothing to it to like sort of, doesn't really do that much, but you know what I mean? You just gotta mess with whatever you think will work out for your smudge tool. But yeah, I saved that, and by saving, like after you're finished messing with all those sliders and stuff and you want to save it, just go down to the bottom right here, and there's this paper that's dog-eared. If you click on that guy, it says create new brush, and it'll give you this little option. And you can name it or whatever and save it, and it'll be in your little drop-down menu up here. Yes! God bless! Hope that helps! Hello, Dom! How you doing, dude? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're having a good life. I haven't seen you in so long. But yeah, I hope your art's going well. As well. But oh my gosh. Alright, guys. I need to like scroll up and see what the heck you guys were saying. Zargo says I would spend 30 hours on a single leaf. But that's okay! Over time, you slowly, like, pace yourself, I suppose. Like, you slowly get used to doing what you're doing, you know? And it's like, you know, the more you do it, the faster you can do it, so it's just a matter of time. Oh! Hello, Reese Reese! That is my best friend, Reese Reese, who is Reese Cups. Hi, Rai, I love you. I've been cleaning my room all day. Sorry for not popping in. That is okay, dude. You do you. You do your life. Like, I'm never offended if someone misses part of my stream. I'd be a terrible friend if I, like, forced you to come in here all the time. Alright, let's see. Let's make another flower. I want to make a tulip. Doing good. The greatest news is I got my partnership yesterday. I'm a bit cold sick, so my work is not productive. Dom, I am so excited for you. Congratulations on your partnership. I am so excited. I'm actually make this a new watercolor layer. Let's see. But I'm sorry that you're dealing with a cold right now, dude. That sucks. I hope you feel better soon. So Thano, I'm glad that we can help to make your math homework time less stressful. Yeah, usually this stream is a lot it's very, very chill. Also, like when I'm actually working on my normal work, it can be pretty chill. So like, you know, if you are looking for a stream, you want to just like sit down and relax and do your work or whatever, this is the place to go, my friends. Wait a minute. Tulips have more of like a straight up stalk, so let me actually make this a little lighter. I hear my dog upstairs. I hear Luna just like barking her little tiny mouth off, and I'm just like I wonder what the heck is going on up there. Rai equals partnered so easily. Yes, her content is always listen, I'd be so excited to get partnered. That's like definitely one of my goals here. Hello, Perluna! This is beautiful. How do you even make it look like this in Photoshop? Well, I just did a whole tutorial on that, and it's gonna be VODed if you are interested in learning more than what I'm about to tell you about it. But yes, it's pretty easy actually to make your make your tools mimic watercolor digitally. And the biggest things that I had given advice on was the use of transparency. So whether that be using the actual opacity of your brush and messing with it. So like if I were to turn the opacity down, then like the color will be lighter. Using pressure for opacity, which also does a similar thing, except the harder you press, the darker it'll get. And then the lighter you press, the lighter it'll get. So it's about using transparency. It's also about, using multiply layers, which also kind of create an effective transparency in your actual layers, without like messing with the actual color. So like if I were to, let me show you an example of that as well, for anyone that is still interested in learning some more about Photoshop from me. So here we go. So the difference between, let me make this a dark color for you guys. The difference between, I'll use a regular brush for this because I think that'll mess up. Oh, that's a dark red. Here we go. Okay, so the difference between using the opacity slider to make your color transparent and using multiply is that if I make this layer a multiply layer, it retains the value of the pigment that I put down. So it retains, like, it's still this color. And if I were to draw this color, it'd still stay this color. However, now when I draw underneath it in any color I want, it will show that color underneath, sort of like a window or like a glass. You know what I mean? Whereas if this were just a normal layer, it's obviously opaque. So like, this is how your layers start. They're just normal layers. If you want to make it sort of retain the color, like you don't want it to just, if I lower the opacity again, it'll make the color look lighter. And if you don't want that, you just do multiply and it'll show anything underneath it and also mix with those colors underneath. So that's one way, one thing that you should know if you want to try and use watercolor in Photoshop, like watercolor, you know what I mean? And also, yeah, like the transparency is like the biggest deal. And like I was saying earlier on, you can also mess with your brush settings. And like I was saying before, that it's easy to make your own watercolor brushes with just the default brushes in Photoshop by messing with their presets. So like this cup with the brushes in it, if you go to it, if you click on it and you have a brush on, you can mess with the way that brush looks by like turning this stuff on. So if I like turn on scattering and I move the slider, it makes this look like a crazy blob and things like that. But yeah, so messing with the brush presets to like, make maybe like rough edges like a watercolor brush would do, make it cool, make wet edges happen, things like that. It has all that sort of things in it. And there are also pre-made sets that people have made so that you don't have to go through every brush you want to make and like, spend all that time making it and sometimes it not looking quite right. Like you could always just buy sets, and the set that I recommend is Robert Ardill's set, who is an Irish artist that made a watercolor set for Photoshop. So yeah. And another thing, to make things look even more complete, to make it look even more like watercolor, you could add a texture to it. So like there's this watercolor paper texture I added underneath, and there's also some of the texture added above, just to add just a little bit more of that effect of it's on watercolor paper, because that sort of, to me, seals the deal. By adding texture to it, it just makes it seem like it's actually on that piece of paper. So yeah, it's about like, you could just Google watercolor paper textures, you could scan your own textures and add them in, things like that. But yes, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. It's a little time consuming, but it's simple. It's simple to do. If you guys have any more questions about how to do this, if you missed something that I said, or if you want me to repeat something or show my brush settings, you let me know and I'll do that for you, because I am here to educate. Edumacation. Crystal, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed having you in the stream today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Love you so much. I will be sure to highlight this one when I'm done, because I know that a lot of people responded to my tutorial, so thank you so much. Thank you for teaching. Definitely gonna try it one day. Well, I'm glad that I can help, Perluna, and I'm glad that you asked the question. So, nice. Oh, Reese, is your heating finally fixed? Heck yeah, man. What the heck was I doing? Who am I? What year is it? Oh, dang. I was, working on the, tulip. Here we go. Back to the tulip, my friends. Here we go. Oh, jeez. Is that the right color? Oh, I had pressure for opacity off. Well, that's what happened. Okay, man, I gotta go eat and then I have to start packing. Yeah, that's right, to see my freaking, to see me, because Reese is coming with me to the Panic at the Disco concert tomorrow. I'm so freaking excited about it, I'm gonna scream. Oh! But yeah, dude, I'll see you later, I'll text you. Much love. Thanks for stopping in. So supportive. Sorry, Soup Tree, oh no! Hey, Soup Tree, I love you. Good to see you in the chat. Holy crap. Tej! Ah! Oh my gosh. TJ donated $10. Awesome lesson, inspirational speeches, survived a raid. Nice job today. Thank you, TJ. Thank you so much for the support. You are like, you're unbelievable. I love you so much. Some people, guys, give him some love in the chat, please. Please give him a bunch of heart emotes for me. Without spamming it 7 per message. So that you guys don't get timed out. But thank you so much for the support. It means a lot to me that you guys support my dream and that you guys want to help me get there. I'm screaming. Ah! Oh my god. I don't know what to say other than thank you. I'm like, you're the best. I want to add some orange to this. Let's see. Just to add a little bit of flair. Hey, Delirious! I didn't say hi to you yet. How you doing, dude? Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope that everyone's work days went okay, by the way. And that everyone is having a chill evening. Following along, sort of. Got the watercolor set. Can confirm it's crazy useful. Thank you, Grex! I am going to take a look at what you are painting right now. Oh, it looks great! That looks fantastic. That looks just like you painted that in real life, Grex. Great job. You should post that, man. I'm proud of you. Ah, I'm so excited! Man, y'all decided to raid me the day that my hair looks terrible. I'm like, I didn't do my hair this morning. I don't have the swag today. I'm dying. You are flower bros now. True. Something on my chin over here. Ah. I want... What did I want before? The drippy water. That's the one I liked. I'm gonna undo what I just did before. I don't like it. There we go. It's a little better. Ryu still look cute. Kiruken! Oh, please. You're too sweet. Should I add another leaf? I'm gonna do it! I'm a madman, I'm gonna do it! Freaking done. She added another leaf! It's over. It's like, you know, Easter's coming up, right? And if any of you guys want to make like these cute little gifts for your family, just make some watercolor images, print them out. I'm sure they'd love that stuff. Heck yeah. It's smart to look crap every day. That's when people host you. Hello, Gendertaker. I hope that that's how you say your name. Hello. Also, pro tip. To add shadow to your images, the best way to go about that with watercolor and ink and anything is by using blues or cooler colors. So like, anything on the bluer side of the spectrum should be used in shading. Whereas if you're using highlights, or if you're trying to make things look brighter, you should use red, like warmer colors like red or yellow and things like that. So like, shade blue, and then highlight red, something like that. Or like yellow, you know what I mean? Alright, let's see. I kind of want to smudge this up because I didn't smudge this yet. I just realized. Alright, let's see what happens if I add that crazy effect with the pooling. That's not bad. Edges rough? What does that do? Oh! No, I don't like that. Fat edges? Meh. Strong edges. Oh! Too strong! Too many weights! That tulip just lifted way too much. Alright, I like the edges. I think it looks pretty nice. Alright, cool. Stay away from using solid whites and blacks to shade highlights. Shade and highlight your pictures. It'll save you a huge step in your development as an artist. Ah, yes, that is a very good tip. TJ, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, when you're shading, unless you're doing a grayscale image, do not use black in your shading, because all that results in is making your piece look muddy. And I will show you what I mean. So like, when I say like add blues and reds, like I'm serious, man. I'm very a threat about that. So like if I do my regular brush, I'm gonna draw a circle here, right? And I'm like, you know what? I want to shade this. If I use like blue, let's start with the blue. We'll start with the blue, which is like the shade that I want to use here. I'll end up looking sort of like. Let me use my favorite smudge tool here. Doesn't that just look so nice? Look at that blue. So just by using a blue shade, smudging that. Smudge that bit. Smudge it. Let's do it. Hell to the yeah. Yeah. So like already, like that looks really nice, right? And if I wanted to add the highlight, I can use yellow. Because green and yellow look really nice, right? Check that out, man. That looks really nice. Now, if I were to make the same sphere, the same green that I used, there we go. If I were to make the same sphere, and I were to try and highlight it with, or shade it with black, here's what that would do. I forgot one thing. Hold on a minute. Ah! Alright, there we go. Now I use white for the highlight. It's like, it works, but like, it just looks so much muddier. Whereas like here, it's like, there's just much more happening. There's just much more, it's so much more interesting. This is just kind of like a, it's not going to fit in its environment. Because, like, everything that you see in real life is being affected by its environment. So, like, you're going to see colors that are in your room, right, be, like, bouncing off your skin. You're going to see, like, that's why you look so different in certain lights, right? Because if you're, like, under, let's say, like, a really bright yellow light, you're going to look yellower than you would if you were, like, in a blue light, right? So, like, there is nothing that will reflect black back at this ball. Like, even black that you see in real life is never, like, gonna be completely black like this. Like, there's no such thing as the ultimate black, except for that guy that made, like, the darkest black that ever was made for pigments or whatever. But, like, yeah, it's more obvious with, like, a light skin color. So let me show you that, too. Like what Slothana was saying. So, like, it's especially, like, prominent in, like, when people make drawings of people. Like, let's say I'm making, like, a light skin color here. So, like, here's this guy. He's super happy, right? He's like, heck yeah, I'm about to get shaded. So here we go. If I use, like, a purplish blue, like, let's say, like, something like this. I use, like, kind of a bright yellow to highlight here. That looks pretty dang good, doesn't it? Whereas if I were to make the same dude, this guy's not gonna be as happy because he's gonna be shaded black. He's like, no, I'm not excited about this. So, like, if I go back to this shade here, and I use this black that I'm currently using, and I'm like, yay, I can't wait to shade this guy. I'm gonna use white for the highlight. Ooh. It's like, what happened, man? He got like a 5 o'clock shadow. So, like, it is especially prominent in something like this. I think that this sort of, it's kind of hard to tell, but, like, this is especially prominent. So, like, you can see, like, how much nicer the shade with that blue looks compared to the black. Like, it just, because, like, oh, man. Yeah, if you're serious about art, this is very important. Look at how gross this is. Zargo! He's a fireman! I mean, I guess that's one way that you can explain it. It's like, you go to your art class and you have this piece and you like shade it with black and the teacher's just like, what the heck is this? And you're just like, the guy's a fireman. Boom! A+! Done! Jester says, I mean, he's still cute. I mean, he can still be cute, but he's shaded the wrong way. You can't do anything wrong in art, except for this. That is what I'm saying here. Unless you're doing a black and white piece, I just recommend not using black in shading. You could use something close to black, like you could use like a really dark blue, like here, right? But like, I just recommend against it. Thanks for the tip, I'll think of that when I start to color. Alright, I'm glad that helped you, Kirikin. Next time I ditch a guy, I'm going to say he's shaded the wrong way. Zargo, don't be shady the wrong way. I like you guys. I like these new guys in the chat. You're funny. Alright guys. Oh boy. I hope that taught you a little something about how to shade. I hate grading in art class. It is always graded by what the teacher likes, or at least it was with mine. See, that's poop, alright? I'm so sorry. Like, the best teachers that I've ever had were definitely the ones that I had in college last year and, like, for the past few years, in my illustration class. They, like, at UConn, it was very obvious that they wanted me to go there not because I was, like, the perfect artist or because they liked everything that I did, but because they saw the potential in my work by looking at it formally and seeing what sorts of techniques I was using. And they saw that I had potential in terms of, like, I was okay at human anatomy, I was okay at drawing certain things, and they knew that they could improve on that. So, like, for a teacher to, like, you know, look at your work and instead of looking at it for, you know, the formal qualities and the composition and, like, things that you could improve on, they'll, like, just say, I don't like it because it's about this. Like, that's silly to me. Like they say, art is subjective indeed, and, it's important not to let your personal feelings about what they had actually painted or drew or whatever get in the way of grading it based on what it was supposed to be graded on. So, like, you know, did you draw this arm correctly, or, like, is it anatomically correct? Is it, is the topic what we had assigned, etc.? Like, you know. Compared to my art, you are perfect. Jester! No. I'm not perfect, man. I appreciate the compliment, but no, I'm not perfect. I'm sure your art is beautiful, and I would love to see it one day. In fact, if you guys want to join my Discord, it is, there's an invite down below in the chat rules section, and I'm sure that someone is about to link it in the chat as soon as they hear this, as soon as they hear me say it. But in my Discord, there is a hashtag Creative Corner, where all of my viewers and all of the people that are in the Discord can post any of the art that they've made, and get feedback on it, or just, you know, fish for compliments and all that fun stuff. Rye for teacher of my kids. Zargo! I'd be happy to. Alright, guys. I have been going on rambles and rambles this whole time. Bye, Perluna! Thank you so much for coming by. I hope to see you again sometime soon. But, alright, guys. I have been going for a long time. I'm actually, past when I was supposed to get off. I have to go now because I have some things planned. But, I want to thank you all so much for coming by and watching my tutorial, and I want to especially thank my brother for the raid, Fire Dragon Sub 64. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you guys who came in during the raid, and to all of you who are watching, and who stayed and, took a look at my work for so long. It means a lot to me. I'm really looking to teach more and more people about art and about all these fun little tricks and how to make art, like, I don't know, like how people, like, I just want to help people learn and help people realize that it's easy to do. But, yeah. I'm gonna stop rambling now. Thank you guys so much for coming, and I really enjoyed doing this tutorial for you. I hope to see you again soon. On Sunday, I will not be able to stream. I'm just gonna warn you all right now. I know that I usually stream on Sundays too, but I will not be able to stream on Sunday because I will be recovering from the crazy concert hype tomorrow. So, like, I will be resuming my streaming on a normal schedule. On Tuesday, I will be doing it, like, at my usual time from, like, 11 to 5. And I'll be doing it after that. I'll be trying to do it, like, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, like I usually do. And again, every Thursday is Tutorial Thursday, so if any of you guys who are new here want to learn more about art, I teach you guys something every day when I draw anyway, but, like, Thursdays are specified for education, so. Anyway, love you guys so much. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.